In addition to taking care of our daughter and everything else, my partner has left the front door open, trashed my car, and streams all day, which has left me handicapped and claiming him as a liability. My 37-year-old husband Nathan and I have been a couple for 8 years. Ever since 3F came into this world, I have never entrusted Nathan with even the smallest of tasks. When I was 19 years old, a semi-truck driver dozed off and crushed my car to dust while I was inside. On good days and bad, my metal makes me physically disabled and makes me glow like a Christmas tree for the TSA. I purchased a home and had it modified using a portion of my settlement money in anticipation of my eventual wheelchair needs. Software development is fun for me, and no one bats an eye if I stay in bed on sick days. My husband has been out of work for 5 years. Everything was fine till the birth of our daughter. I like having him here since he helped me with the settlement, a paid-off property, and my wage. He was responsible for much of the housework. So that we can spend more time together, we've decided to pay for deep cleaning services once a week and once a month. It was as if our baby's birth turned a switch in his brain off. Our daughter wore diapers that were too big, and he regretted it. Misshapen containers. Invert the diapers. Waste not, want not. Disregard doorknobs. He has gone shoe shopping 3 times this week due to her receiving the wrong socks and shoes. At last I went to Amazon and bought the right ones. On more than one occasion, he has assisted me in filling my weekly pill organizer, just to accidentally drop new medication all over the floor. Then he went on to forget that he hadn't lifted them all. Despite my protests, he insists that I take my prescription with grapefruit juice. He persistently adds milk to my coffee, seemingly unaware that I am unable to consume dairy. For example, burger cheese. He shattered a lot of my belongings because he was so irresponsible. His careless drop caused my laptop to shatter, amassing travel gear. Despite my assurances that I would bring my devices, we've had a lot of cutlery go missing in the garbage. While he was changing the head gasket on my automobile, he excessively torqued the engine bolt, which broke the block and stopped 2 repair shops from fixing it. The engine replacement cost $11,000, so we decided to buy a new automobile instead. A week down the road, he crashed into the garage door, mistakenly assuming he would be braking instead of speeding. As a pastime, he wished for streaming and tic-tac-toe. I was on his side at first. Quickly, I noticed a pattern. Because of his carelessness, our daughter and I were in danger. No one ever whoops their own things. He packed up his entire gear to film or stream, then he departed from the garage, leaving his thoughts behind. Everything came to a head late last night. He broadcast himself constructing a stage. Non-stop for 9 hours. After a long day at work, I got our daughter ready for bed, fed us, and made sure she was ready to leave for summer camp early. Just outside, he helped her go into bed. I informed him that I would be at my office for work. He was requested by me to take out the trash, promises to do so. After 2 hours, upon my return from work, I found a warm house. He left our front door partially ajar after taking out the trash. With the game volume turned up, he made his way back to the garage. Because she is capable of getting out of bed, I was able to calm down after our child was asleep. It is possible that she stomped out of the house unnoticed by him. At that moment, I noticed that a burner was lit on the stove. An empty container, little and unassuming. I refrained from using the stovetop that evening. He said I had locked the door when I entered the garage and proclaimed, "I need you." I then informed him of the situation with the door. We looked through the footage and he wasn't. He had intended to make ramen, but he had overlooked the burner. Our daughter's beloved saucepan was set atop the still hot pan in the sink. Plastic dish. Becomes completely unusable. I did react too strongly and shout at you. He takes the pot off of our daughter's dish after realizing his error. Immediately to the kitchen island. Seize it immediately and submerge it in water to cool it down. Just let him know that I won't be able to play tonight. Because of him, I am unable to cope. Doing my medication and getting some rest. From the cabinet, a cup emerges, drops it onto the hot stovetop, and point attained. I started to cry. Everything was all right with him. He said accidents happen. It was only an accident, and streaming had worn him down. Why am I inconsolable? Only 1 cup. You can get a new one. I lost it, and told him I'm more of a burden than a partner. He looked at me like I had 2 heads and argued back. I yelled out that he isn't trustworthy in any way. The fact that I have to keep an eye on him like a baby all the time, constantly taking the hit for his blunders. When I'm careless and assume he's an adult, I generally end up getting screwed. I went on to say that I do not see you as a collaborator anymore. Another liability on my checkbook is you. After an angry outburst, he retreated to his bedroom. I notified my mom over the phone. She volunteered to babysit our daughter for a week while we made a decision, assuming it was due to stress. She claims that labeling her husband as a liability was a terrible decision. I notified my husband first thing in the morning that my mom would be picking up our daughter from summer camp and watching her for a week. We didn't hear from him again after he claimed it was fine. In the garage, he and his friends spend all day playing games, making tic-tacs, and streaming food. He had door-to-garage delivery arranged. The following morning. One day he will not be in my bedroom. He has put me on red even though I have messaged him begging to chat or find a solution. As soon as I step foot in the garage, he pays no attention to me. But as soon as his friends or fans start making a fuss, he apologizes and turns off his microphone, prior to the detonation. If something was wrong, I inquired. So that our daughter wouldn't associate my corrections with anger, I was careful to be gentle whenever he erred. I advised that he see a doctor to rule out any serious health problems. People make mistakes, he said, and I always overreacted, and it didn't bother them when they kept making the same ridiculous mistakes. His response to my warning that his gaffes were adding up was, "We can afford it." Despite my undying love for him, I long for the days before we were parents. Someone I could have faith in. Is it forever ruined? Did I come out as being overly critical of his mistakes? Am I omitting anything? So, am I being a jerk? Let us know if her husband spends any of her money. Not approved. He seems to be spending his personal money out of our joint household account. I was concerned that he could feel financially confined or mistreated when he decided to stay at home and take care of our children. Also, I considered the possibility that my spouse would have to privately solicit funds, approval, or items in order to purchase them, or that he would be unable to purchase gifts at all. I deposit my paychecks into the expenses account. $300 in separate accounts, and the remaining balance in savings. The choice to spend or save is, in my opinion, entirely up to him. After going over everyone's replies, I decided to take his account allocation away. In order to cut costs, I also deauthorized him on bills. Before our daughter was born, he took care of housekeeping and repairs, so this seemed reasonable. Everybody is mad with me, and I get it, the arrangement isn't fair. Since my name isn't on his card, I refuse to let it go. On Friday and going forward, I will not be accepting any deposits. Before their daughter was born, inquire as to whether her spouse was involved. I valued his contribution after our baby was born, which was after our out-of-pocket expenses. While we were growing up, he was in charge of the kitchen and did much of the housekeeping. He was responsible for handling one-offs during the week, but he also bought groceries and bulk items together every week. In bed, we had scrambled eggs and coffee to get things started. I could take medication for my heart. I never thought about running the laundry, or even considering getting heavier pain medication to hang and fold clothes. With the exception of breakfast, he primarily does these. Our dishwasher isn't big enough to accommodate all of our toddler's IKEA kids' bowls, and she insists on using separate bowls for each part of her meal. On rare occasions, his streaming causes dishes to sit overnight. In his, does a thorough job of cleaning the yard, dishes, countertops, litter box, garbage, and other random spills. A weekly cleaner is hired so that cleaning is not put off. As a result of being sick, visiting family, participating in neighborhood events, etc., he will be ignoring the house for a few days. My biggest struggle has always been overcoming the feeling of there's too much to catch up on. OMG, where do I start freezing? Thanks to this expert cleaner who comes in once a month, your home will be spotless. The monthly deep cleanings and wardrobe transition from infant to toddler have been made easier with the help of our experienced organizer. Evaluate her spouse's qualities. We used to have a blast collaborating on projects because of his incredible creativity, superhero in the modern era. His creations can rival those of Broadway set designers using only duct tape, 2 cents, cardboard, paint, and foam. He learned how to construct using a flower pot and a homemade lathe, a small foundry. Strived till his proposition rang. Displaying blue opal, my beloved gemstone. His infectious laugh and wacky one-liners are sure to make you laugh. After taking cooking classes, he learned how to make all my favorite recipes and even fashioned a recipe book out of note cards. Songs by Nightwish, Broadway, Aqua, Backstreet Boys, and many more are under his belt. Little off-key, as if no one is around. He starts dancing the second he hears a Michael Jackson song. It wasn't hospital food that I had as my first meal following the birth of our baby. He struck a deal with the proprietor of the restaurant that I love. Whenever I went into labor, he would send a note to the owner of the restaurant, instructing him to prepare my favorite dishes and bring them to the hospital. Prior to the scent hitting me, I had no idea. Over my lunch, I cried a few happy tears. Frogs are cute. He identified each and every frog in our yard as captured on film. He designed and made a welcome home sign out of vacuum-formed pieces featuring our beloved animals. While out, he'd send me pictures or bring home adorable souvenirs with a frog motif. While I was in bed in excruciating pain, he would bring me food. Resting on the wooden tray he had fashioned himself. Turns out to be a bed tray in the making. Hospital meal trays were the inspiration for the idea. He puts on my shoes and socks whenever I am unable to. In his pursuit of making me feel beautiful, he mastered various hairstyles, including curling and flattening, He cheers me up by putting my hair up when I feel down about my broken body. He captured my heart. Oh, how I long for that day. He can be that at times. Hess isn't doing it as frequently now. Update apologies for the delayed reply. I appreciate the comments, recommendations, and notes. 7 days elapsed. Providing detailed responses prior to making any changes. Please find the update in the following 8 paragraphs. 1. My spouse doesn't work, why is that? We both agreed that the toxic work environment was never worth the low pay. Even though he could have easily found work elsewhere, fortunately, he had little interest in starting his own business. He did home renovations and repairs. His contemporaries' discussions of dealing with female employees, customers, and clients was repulsive. Many of his female coworkers left as a result of the sexual harassment he witnessed. The exploitation of women by salespeople and adjusters repulsed him. There is a market for selling worthless services at inflated prices. His hours would be drastically reduced till he departed if he spoke. He left his first job when his employer left him a scolding note for refusing to sell unnecessary refrigerant to a young black couple. He went to the state labor board with proof and filed complaints against multiple employers. Please return. As far as we are aware, nothing transpired. After he left the trades, he worked in warehouses and factories. Because he needed medical leave, both of them chastised him harshly. Workers are not protected until they qualify for FMLA, which takes a year and is unpaid. Yes, it is an honor to be able to walk away from a paying job while raising your middle finger, just like you. I've, few times, but I'm satisfied with my current situation because it's not harmful. Thanks to my achievements, my employer has instituted and strictly implements a policy of unlimited paid sick and medical leave with no penalties whatsoever. Managers who impose penalties on employees are removed from their positions. One of a kind for the business. Until I either quit working or our child is old enough to not require regular supervision, he will not be able to return to work unless we find another unicorn company that would not penalize him for taking time off to care for me or our baby. Like when daycare closed for a week because of an RSV outbreak. Last but not least, my income is more than twice his highest, despite the fact that I am incapacitated. Without pay cuts for vacation, changing business associates is not feasible from a financial standpoint. Is my spouse. Why spouse? Wealthy or well-known thanks to TikTok? No. Averaging 6 people watch his shows. On Twitch, he has 3 followers. While we were filing our taxes, he showed me that instead of a $1,099, Head had received $6 from TikTok Live Presents, dismissed by Twitch. Compared to last year, his viewership is relatively unchanged. 3. We have a weekly housekeeper, a summer camp, and some part-time babysitters. Why do we need all of these? It annoys me when one spouse works 40 hours a week, and the other stays at home to take care of the kids and make sure they're socialized, educated, and entertained. Functioning as a constant availability. I can't fathom expecting that level of commitment from someone I care about. I would be unable to physically assist my husband with his household duties if he were to oversee all of the daycare activities and field trips. One way to avoid cleaning paralysis is to clean the house weekly. Where seemingly little errors escalate into enormous undertakings, and you are at a loss as to how to begin. In the course of adjusting to parenthood, and cleaning and sorting were forms of self-care for the toddler. We started our child in part-time childcare when she turned 3 years old. Back when my partner was the main caregiver, having chores done once a week helped keep things from getting out of hand. 4. A stipend. Yes, I still wanted my husband to have money, even if he was unemployed. Many stories I've heard about women and other non-working spouses have dealt with financial abuse or were unable to exit abusive relationships due to a lack of personal money. Perhaps my time spent on social media has run its course. When our dynamic became imbalanced, should I have intervened sooner? Yes, it is my 5. What happens to the house in the event of a divorce? My lawyer does not have access to the funds from the settlement since they are held in a separate trust. Due to my continuing medical expenses and the documentation showing that his licenses and certifications have not expired, it is highly improbable that a judge will grant alimony. It ought to cover most questions about the background. It was Friday, and I walked out of my office to the aroma of cooking. I got home from work to see my husband preparing the dinner plates. He asked if we might have supper together. The comments on Reddit are read by me. My writing on him will remain unaltered as long as he is able to see it. He said he'd been dwelling on the horror of presenting a laundry list of medical diagnoses as evidence and rationale for the past day. Instead, he said it was not ADHD. In his youth, his mother, as she struggled with an addiction to opioids and Ritalin, she sought out the diagnosis of ADHD for him from numerous doctors. As an adult, he now has 2 viewpoints thanks to her persuasion. His mid-20s was when he learned about her addiction. He sought therapy after discovering his mom was abusing him for medication. Even though he still doesn't believe he has autism or ADHD, He has promised to return to the psychiatrist, but he thinks it's depression. He will inquire about alternative medical solutions to alleviate my concerns or rule out serious problems if he is not sad. I couldn't shake something he said, even though he seemed genuine. He made a joke and apologized as he met my hurt eyes. The people claiming he's mistaken must be correct after all. He did marry an ill person while knowing our union would be unusual. He stated that he also consumed alcohol. When he spoiled our child's favorite dinner by leaving the door open and the pot on, as he mentioned on his stream, I would watch that very carefully. Recently, he pretended to be a drunk Viking by filling his wine bottle with grape juice, even though he was perfectly sober. I will carry on, he said. Following dinner, I was taken aback to witness the new Deadpool film. We skipped our usual cinema because he checked the limited edition popcorn buckets at each one. I now possess the infant Deadpool snack and beverage container. We spoke about the breakdown in our family dynamic the following day. All of the little things have added up. Apologies, in my view, need change. It makes no difference to me if you say you're sorry but then act the same. More importantly, he failed to recognize the frequency with which he committed the same errors. This past Sunday, we spoke about short and long term. He needs to start making his own doctor's appointments right now. Timelines for expectations. After he fixed something, he promised he would cease charging our spending account for it. He plans to spend his allowance. Regarding this, we had a conversation. I resumed the $50 per paycheck deposit. He suggested he leave it like way until he settles the bills from the auto shop and the repairs he had earlier this year. He promised to try, but said it would take longer to recoup the expense of fixing my previous car's engine. Yes, something seems off. Exploiting people's feelings. Despite many conversations, I am unsure of the frequency. Thinking that saying sorry aloud is the final thing you need to do to make up for a mistake is akin to never apologizing at all. I can tell he'll read this. Is it reasonable to assume that now that we've sorted this, we'll be a beautiful married couple till we die? Not at all. No offense to the hubby at this time. Possible way to fix this? Very possibly. There is a lot for my spouse to fix, and he knows he doesn't have much time. We hope that our kid would realize the importance of having decent. Love isn't enough. Taking responsibility for one's actions can get one back on track, and being honest about mistakes is the right thing to do regardless of the outcome. He has read the post at last, so please understand what I am trying to say. Just in case it isn't clear, the final 4 words of the preceding 4 paragraphs. Comments. I am prepared to Hulk out. I hope he protects his own financial interests. Considering your health problems have limited his ability to work, you both don't seem interested in being partners, and your opinions on alimony and money. Relationships are what I'm after. I'm there to lend a hand and cover the costs of childcare, housekeeping, and a part-time daycare that doubles as a summer camp, with the assurance that he is spending his own money. Because my health issues limit his ability to work, he would have less of a case for alimony if we were to end our relationship after all. He wouldn't require a unicorn position with unpenalized PTO. Am I still considering? Help him touch down fairly gently? Very probably. From what I've heard, a court is not as inclined to compel it. She should get a backbone and talk to her spouse about it if she wants to fix things. My spine is held together by duct tape, screws, corrosion, and vibrations. I wish I could grow a new one. If there's a welcome but transient change in the following month, I know he'll freak out. Apologies to those who have dogpiled you in the past, but it's incorrect to think that I intend to keep living this way just because I want to be sure my husband is really choosing to suck. His streaming garbage got more followers after 1 week than your 2 posts combined. Just my opinion. But I find it hard to believe that his toxic environment prevented him from holding a job. I see your point. Workplace hazards do, unfortunately, exist. Based on what I witnessed, he testified before the labor board. He had been an excellent house husband before things went south. Shame he squandered it. In a few years I should be able to retire unless my industry has a sudden and drastic decline in salary.